All right, we're back on Olympic Way, and I want to thank Kate and Andy Chater for this information. You will see this tree is a... Yeah, well, you can say it, I can't. But you'll also see there's a 0 degrees by this tree. And right there was Fulton Way. And I want you to think of Fulton Way as the Greenwich Meridian. All the trees planted the other side have come from the Western Hemisphere. All the trees on this side have come from the Eastern Hemisphere. This tree here, from 20 degrees east, if you look at that, and it's one of them. And it looks like that. In fact, to me, they all look like trees. I can't tell the difference between one and the other. But both sides of the road, this side of the road of Olympic Way, opposite to the station, is the Eastern Hemisphere. If you follow it down the other way, the trees are from the Western Hemisphere. 20 degrees east. "50 degrees east. Here we have something quite rare in the area. At 80 degrees east, we get a nice look at the size of the arch. Way up there. We are essentially today walking in a big loop all the way around Wembley Stadium. This is the closest we get to it, and unfortunately at the moment it's the closest we can get to it because it's self-isolating. Now, this stadium was only built less than 20 years ago. The old one was demolished in 2003. Wembley Stadium's history has many chapters, but we'll start right back in the beginning. After it had been built for the Empire Exhibition, the whole site in 1926 fell into dereliction. No one knew really what to do with it. The exhibition was over, and one man who had worked on the site as a cigarette kiosk owner was Arthur Elvin. He bought, in fact, a number of the kiosks on the site, and he owned them. And when the exhibition came to an end, he worked as a contractor to clear the site. He bought the derelict buildings up one by one and sold off the scraps. Some of the buildings he actually sold piecemeal. For instance, one of them, the Sierra Leone Pavilion, became a restaurant in County Waterford in Ireland, and the New Zealand Pavilion moved to be a dance hall somewhere in London. He saw the possibility of the Empire Stadium, which was in liquidation and considered financially unviable. He offered over £100,000 to buy the stadium using just a £12,000 down payment with yearly payments of it going forward. That didn't go quite as he planned, but he managed to rescue the stadium by bringing in the new American import of greyhound racing, and that's how he saved Wembley Stadium, and in fact saved this entire area from being developed for housing, which was the plan, and made it into what it was up until 10-15 years ago, and it's now being sold off for housing.
Toby Fundin overtaking Barry Briggs of Britain. A 150 feet above the Wembley turf stands the top of the ski run for the international ski jumping competition. The takeoff is 80 feet high. Larsen of Norway jumping now. Kvernvolden, also Norway. They land first on artificial snow, then straw. A new way to hit the hay. Iliniemi of Finland. The runway from top to takeoff is surfaced by a plastic material, watered to keep it slippery. Erling Stranden, a 12-year-old schoolboy from Norway, is the youngest of the 40 competitors. 9 countries represented. 21-year-old Vaiko Kankanen of Finland, well known in all the big skiing countries. He made the best leap of the day. But why take it seriously? You can ski in city dress. Oh well, maybe the brolly ought to have been a parachute.
We will shout it out. He is the champion of the world. We will raise a shout. We will shout it out.
Here in Wembley Park, Quintain does believe in the heritage. Just a quick look around Arena Square while we're here. Some of the Hall of Square of Fame handprints. There's Lee Evans. We all know who Lee Evans is. Well, put it in comments if you do, because I don't. I've heard of them. And him. The old arena. Now, this is the only old thing left. It doesn't come from the British Empire exhibition. That was in 1924 and 25. This comes from the Empire Games, or the Commonwealth Games of 1930 something, 34 I think. This was the Empire Pool, the swimming pool built for the Empire Games. The old stadium obviously was used, that was already here, that was open for the Empire exhibition. So they built this for the Commonwealth Empire Games of 1930, as I say, I think it was 1934.
And here we are at the new Empire Swimming Pool, Wembley, just in time to see the start of the 1500 yards men's freestyle final. Larsen Canada's not swimming. Here's some real high diving. The best of a good bunch was Mather, who just won from the Englishman Tomalin, with Marchant, also of the home country, third.
We come to the Olympic Games of 1948. The 1940 and 1944 Games had been cancelled because of the war. Britain said that it would host the Games because these facilities were already here, but there wouldn't be any great expenditure, it would all be austerity. So, for instance, Wembley School, now Alperton Community School, in Stanley Avenue, opposite the church, which we passed at the beginning of the walk, became the camp for the athletes from some of the smaller Commonwealth countries, Bermuda, Trinidad, Jamaica, Ceylon, now Sri Lanka, and Malta. And they term ended in July, and within a week the school had been transfigured to be, the upstairs classrooms were the dormitories. Downstairs there were sort of common rooms and restrooms and relaxing rooms. And then at the end of the games it was all put back to a school. I can't get up to the plaque, which is still up there. Outside the shop there are the plaques that were on the Empire Stadium, which talked about the Olympic medals, but here are some photos of them, which I took some time ago. And that is perhaps the best thing Quintain has done here. Apparently it's not good to work in, it's not a nice venue to work in for the council officers, but as a place to go, particularly to go in and have a look in the council chamber and the ballroom, which is the circular bit on the top. Nice to see Quintain have left something of heritage here. So we turn right to walk up between the Civic Centre and the Empire Pool. Over there, behind the Hilton Hotel, is the London Design Outlet Centre. Of course, it's all closed at the moment. Interesting though, in there, in the cinema, there's a Starbucks. There aren't many Starbucks in this area, as I've already said. I mentioned the old chapel, which would have been a nice place to keep an exhibition open about everything that has been on this site. Well, that's where the old chapel was. Just at the edge of this road, there's the Empire Pool, as I always think of it, the arena. Behind it, the arch of the stadium. The Civic Centre over there on the left. Right, I'm coming out of Engineers Way now, and I'm going to cross Empire Way. This was the very boundary, as it still is, of the whole site. The Empire exhibition behind me. I'm now coming out to cross Empire Way when I can.
They've changed our local pally into a bowling alley, and things ain't what they used to be. There's Teds with drainpipe trousers and Debs in coffee houses, and things ain't what they used to be. There used to be trams, not very quick, got you from place to place, but now there's just jams, half a mile thick, stay in the human race. I'm walking, they've stuck parking meters outside our doors to greet us. Nothing.
And turn left. Well, as we come to the end of Empire Way, we're going to cross over onto the green opposite. Normally, when the world isn't in lockdown crisis, nothing moves around this roundabout. It's the most badly designed traffic junction in the world, because there is traffic lights just up there, which holds up a queue, and then you have traffic coming down Empire Way that way, traffic coming up Empire Way that way, and nothing can go along Empire Way that way. Did you notice the names of those roads? That's because originally this was one vast roundabout. That up there is called Wembley Hill Road, but this roundabout was all part of Empire Way. It's not on the Quintain site. It's been brought across the road. This lion, the emblem of the British Empire exhibition at Wembley 24-25. It was a decorative flagpole support from the Palace of Industry. Of course, the lion became the symbol of Wembley. There was the Wembley Lions Speedway team. It was all just moulded concrete, which was also the problem with the old stadium. When people said keep the towers, they couldn't, because it was just moulded concrete like this. It couldn't be demolished brick by brick and built somewhere else. It was just one lump of concrete. That was the technology of the 1920s. We're going to turn right now for our big climb of the day up Dagmar Avenue. Dagmar Avenue is actually quite a steep climb. It's steeper at the other side to this one, so this is the easier way to do it. And we are going up quite a way. There used to be a good view of the old stadium from up here, but there are things in the way nowadays. But this is one of the this is the highest point in Wembley, I think. Don't be fooled by this footpath sign. That will not take you to Wembley High Road. Instead, it takes you to a little cul-de-sac on the other side of the hill, which is called High Street because it's high. And there is the Green Man pub. Well worth a visit. It's shut at the moment, of course, but when the world returns to normal, the Green Man pub does good food at a reasonably good price. It's got a nice garden. It does tend to play sport a little bit loudly inside. Keep well away from it on an event day. It is absolutely heaving. But a hidden little pub up here in Dagmar Avenue. You can also access it from Wembley Hill Road. And there you get the view on the other side across the Great Valley to Sudbury Hill on the left and Harrow Hill on the right. You can tell the difference because Sudbury Hill does not have Harrow Church on top of it, whereas Harrow Hill does. Harrow School, Harrow Hill. And now we go down Dagmar Avenue. I'm going to cross the road as we go down because we're going to turn right at the bottom and enter King Edward's Park. King Edward VII's Memorial Park, to give it its full title. You can see what I mean about this side being much steeper than the other. So we turned right at the bottom into Park Lane. And we're going to turn left into the park just where that man is. Like, yeah, he's moved, so we can. He hasn't moved, so we can't. Yeah, we can. We move into the park. King Edward VII's Memorial Park. I always find that quite amazing, actually, because Edward VII died in 1910, 1911, and there wasn't anywhere called Wembley then. Well, there was Wembley, but it was just a tiny village. There was no town, and yet someone decided to open this park and set a park aside in countryside, as it roughly was. Some details on the screen. spring blossom in the park. Good facilities in the park. Not open, of course. 3 tennis courts, children's playground. There's a basketball court over there, and then sports pitches as well as pleasant gardens and so forth. As we walk through the park, we're sort of diagonally crossing it for the far left corner. I always think this pavilion looks a bit like something in London Zoo, the Elephant Pavilion maybe. Still a very definite sense that we are descending off the top of the hill that Dagmar Avenue goes up, Wembley Hill. One thing I didn't mention earlier, of course, was that before not just the current stadium, but the Empire Exhibition Stadium, the Empire Stadium, there was Watkins Folly. The tower that was... Well, this is where Wembley started. Not here in the park, but back there where the stadium is. The Metropolitan Railway was really what brought life to Wembley. The director, Sir Edward Watkin, had many grand dreams. Running his railway wasn't enough, and he decided that it wasn't good enough, that London didn't have something to rival Paris. So he bought the grounds of the estate of Wembley Park, and on the hill in the middle he decided he was going to build a tower. He had an international competition for the design of a tower. There were all sorts of wonderful designs, including a spiral railway that went up the outside of the tower all the way to the top, and various other things. And in the end they decided on one that, as far as I'm concerned, looks exactly like Eiffel Tower. And they began to build, and they built the first section and opened it up to the public to raise money for the next bit. And no one came, which when you look at the pictures is hardly surprising, because they only had 4 tents up there. And there was nothing to look at except fields. But because he built it, he opened a station called Wembley Park. And when it came to the Empire Exhibition, you can just see the stadium in the background, the arch over there. That's where the tower would have been going straight into the sky. Taller than that one, taller than the arch, taller than the Eiffel Tower, of course, because we weren't going to just duplicate. When they came for the Empire Exhibition, there they had the land of Wembley Park with a good rail link into central London from Wembley Park Station, and that's where they built it. And of course that's what began to bring everything into Wembley after that. Wembley became the suburb it is today. I think it's been decades since they allowed you to bring your car in here to park. Yeah, they still keep the car park railings nicely painted. As we leave the park, we turn left. Well, we're heading towards Wembley High Road now. We've got the Great Central Railway, the Chiltern Line, to go under again first. We sort of have to undo all the things we've crossed on the way back. Now, as if you had any doubts that Wembley was a suburb, that this is suburbia, there is the stereotypical street name of suburbs. I've no idea what an acacia tree looks like. Probably like a tree like all the others we've seen. Now if we just take a slight deviation down to this car park for a moment. No, definitely can't do it. There used to be, and half the car park is closed off now, but there used to be a footpath which starts just behind that building over there, and it's just steps which take you up into the high road. But you could stand on those stairs in my youth and you could watch not only the trains going along this line, but also the ones going along the Great Central as well. I'm sure you're fascinated by this fact. There is something slightly reassuring about public transport still working. It sort of says there's a normal world going on somewhere, even though somehow you're not allowed to be part of it. There's a sort of mysterious normality. Well, we're now walking past on the left what was the Marks and Spencer's extension when they extended their high street store back here on 2 floors, and I think it became the largest Marks and Spencer's in London, if not in the country. It's been many years since there was a Marks and Spencer on Wembley High Road. And the thing I remember about what is now Pound Stretcher was it was a supermarket which you had to go downstairs to, and they had a huge aquarium. We're coming up to Wembley High Road, lunchtime on a ordinary working Monday, and I don't think we'll see many people around, although to be fair there are more than I expect. And as we turn left, look, unexpected, 2 huge new tower blocks. It's a lot more crowded than I thought it would be. One thing about this crisis, people are learning to queue properly again. There's one queue going one way to get into the bank, and another going the other way to get into Tesco's. So we cross the road and we head down London Road. In most towns, of course, London Road actually heads somewhere towards London. It's probably no longer the major road that goes there, but here in Wembley it's a no-through road, which doesn't head in the direction of London, at least as far as roads go, though it does run parallel to the railway that's heading there. So we walk down London Road to the end, and at the end of London Road, turn right. Interesting, we take these things for granted, but they are here for blind people as well as for cyclists. The cyclists can come on this lane because they can get into a rut and they don't get any bumps, but they're not meant to go on this lane. It's bumpy. Equally, and more importantly, if you're a blind person and you're coming along here, you sense with your feet that this is the cycle bit and this is the footpath. Now if we turn left here, this footpath takes us back to roads which continue along the railway and head right to Stonebridge Park Station. But we're not going to do that. We're going across the bridge. This is the biggest climb of the day. Here's another little tributary of the River Brent. When there's been a lot of rain, this really gushes through here. This bridge is owned by Network Rail. Bridge LEC1, or Bridge LEC1 number 32, and it's 7 miles, 1,239 yards from Euston Station. And I think there's 75 steps, so we'll have a rest at the top. It used to be slightly lower, but this bit extension was put in the 60s when the line was electrified with overhead cables. So we have these extra stairs to get up. And I always have a rest up here for a minute or two, just to get my breath back. It's really the only reason I'm here. No freight in the yard today. There are some good views from up here, firstly of the stadium. Now, if you ever came up here to see the old stadium, and saw the old stadium rather, firstly those tower blocks weren't there, but the old stadium towers were not as tall as the back of that stand. It was nowhere near as tall as that. Looking round, you can follow along Wembley High Road. Those new tower blocks on what I call Dixon's Corner at Park Lane High Road. Wembley Central Square. Something about Wembley Central Station that is no longer there, sadly, was that if you are on platform 6, they've cleared them away, they've put new decoration in since it's more used these days. There used to be stalagmites hanging from the ceiling where the concrete, water had dripped through the concrete and stalagmites hung down. Now, given that I know when that place was built, because I watched it going up in the 1960s, that meant that within the 30-40 years, 18-inch long stalagmites had grown. You go to a cave system and they tell you it takes millions of years. It does not. I call this the Star Wars Bridge, and this is why. Now you have to slow it down to get the right effect. But that's how they made the lightsaber noise. Not actually on this bridge, but by hitting bits of metal like it. There you've got the post office tower. Did I call it the post office tower? I think it's called the BT tower these days. And the city. There's the shard. I've moved so you can see the shard. Hi. Good thing about this bridge is once you've crossed the main line, you have to cross the new lines which were put in in the 1900s to get the local service out of Euston up to Watford, and also the Bakerloo line up to Watford as well. Not that the Bakerloo line goes that far these days. Well, that train was almost empty. Oh my goodness, the lights are on the arch. Oh wow, I didn't realise quite how long I've been up here. Better carry on then. Let's carry on down the bridge. Past the allotments. Well, we turn left along Lion Park and then right into Valley Gardens. There are, of course, many ways back to the church. I'm going to take this footpath because I don't often get the opportunity to walk along these footpaths anymore. It needs a bit of a hedge trim though. I used to come down here regularly as a child because my aunt and my cousins lived in Victor Grove, which we're just coming up to. Straight ahead is Kathleen Avenue. Here, which is where we're going to turn, is Victor Grove, and then at the end is Dorothy Avenue. Now, Dorothy, Kathleen and Victor were the children of someone, and I can't for the life of me remember who they were, who it was now, but I shall put it on the video with titles to put you out of your misery of not knowing who Dorothy, Kathleen and Victor were. Number 3, Victor Grove. Here, time for a flashback, I think. And we come to Dorothy Avenue where we turn right. Last crane of the day in the distance. Right, well, we're back at the church, but we need to be quiet because it is much later than I intended and they're probably all in bed.